What's up? So, I actually remember to do a Messenger Minutes video on a Sunday afternoon / evening, so we'll see if I actually remember to put this out on Monday. We'll see. But I've got something that's been on my heart this week, and I want to share it with you guys. But first, I got two little examples / stories that I think will help me explain it a bit. So let's get into it. When I was young, I think my faith has changed a lot from when I was little. So when I was young and I was afraid, something that I would do is like obviously freak out and run to my parents and be like, something's happening, mom, help. And their response was trust in God, which is a good response, right? But the connection that made in my mind as a young person was, okay, if I trust God, then whatever is physically or emotionally hurting me is just gonna go away. And as much as I was in the church and as much as I was having the word pounded into me, it never really, I don't think, connected in my brain that that's not what it means to trust in God. So then, when I hit like high school, end of high school, early college, and even into my adult life, I felt this huge amount of betrayal and abandonment by God, because all these things were happening that were hurting me so badly. And I didn't understand why God just didn't snap his fingers and make it go away if he loved me. And then on top of that, I was seeing people living lives that for 4 years had been drilled into my head that if you live this, you're like, this is a huge problem. Like, don't drink, don't have sex before marriage, all this stuff. And I watched all this happening from people who were Christians, and they still had all this respect and were in these positions of like, yeah, just high respect on campus. And I was like, what's going on here? And this kind of don't judge me attitude was in place, obviously. And so I was seeing this and like, God, if there's no consequences to this behavior, and if I really should judge people, like, do you care? Like, does this matter to you? So I had this like kind of crisis of, does it actually matter how much I obey God? Because it seems like I could live a much happier life if I didn't obey all these commandments. I mean, God isn't keeping me from all of my pain, so why should I be afraid to do all this stuff? And it's bled into my adulthood to where I'm still having this issue with God, where I'm like, why won't you guarantee my safety? Why won't you keep me safe from all emotional pain and all hurt? So that's story one. Don't worry, I will cap this off. Story two. So also in the past 1 or 2 weeks, I posted a video on TikTok. I've been real active on TikTok lately, not just to get followers, but because as a musician, I need followers to have a job. So yes, I've been on TikTok and I did what we call a duet, which is where you take somebody else's video and you either sing along with them or react to whatever they put on. And I reacted to a guy's video. It was a young African-American man who basically said, don't hate white people solely for the actions of their ancestors. And I like duetted that, so I did a reaction video and I was like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. That's awesome. And so I reposted that. And it wasn't meant to sort of fight or argue with people, but I like to take stances because it helps me build a community of people who believe those things, and then we can stand our ground together. So I posted that, but I did know I was going to get pushback from it because it's not a popular opinion nowadays. So I put it on there, and I wouldn't really say it went viral, but it blew up way more than any videos that I've ever had on pretty much any platform. So it's got, I think, like 106,000 views on it, and like 12 or 13,000 likes and a ton of comments because everyone was like, I need to get a piece of this. So kind of started a war in my comments. I got called an Uncle Tom and a coon by other African Americans, and I was kind of expecting that, but I was also kind of like, whoa, that's intense. And if people were just straight up being insulting, I just didn't respond because it wasn't worth it. But if people were for some reason calling me like uneducated or ignorant, then I would respond because I was like, this helps me as a musician be ready to face pushback and stand for what I believe in, but also learn what other people are saying and be like, hey, like, what about this, like, offended you? Like, I want to understand how other people think too. Because, like, my goal in standing for the truth isn't to insult people, but I'm not going to back down from a position that I believe is truth. So there were a few like arguments / debates that I had with people. It never really got uncivil, at least on my end. But yeah, so I had a few of those. And people's responses to me usually wasn't like, the reason people were angry wasn't, yeah, I want to be racist against white people. No, it was always like, they thought that because I was defending white people, that I must hate black people, or that I was ignoring racism against minorities. And I found that really interesting, and I think that it can kind of explain some of the reasons that we have so much trouble with people as a society. And I think it's because we're missing a fundamental understanding of what love is. And I think as a culture, we see love as acceptance. And so when we see something that even slightly like, when someone's they're looking at a different side of things than we are, they may not support what's happening over here, but they're just looking at a different side of things happening over here. So even though I don't think racism against white people is okay, that doesn't mean I think racism against people who look like me is okay. I think that's what people assume. And I think we do the same thing with love, where if someone doesn't accept everything that we do, if someone doesn't believe in all of our lifestyle choices, then we're like, oh, you hate me. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I do love you. You're cool. It's just like, I don't believe in the lifestyle you've chosen to live. If my little brother punches me and I'm like, no, don't do that, do I hate my little brother? No, I just don't want him to punch me. And that's kind of the way I view it, is like, we need to tell the truth about sin. That doesn't mean that we don't love people. That just means that we are against the sin. And I think that when we start to kind of understand that, where people are coming from, and that they don't really understand what love is, and that maybe we don't either, then we can start to cover some ground with people a little bit. And I think I also realized in my own life, I don't really understand what love is either. I don't understand God's love, because if I did, I wouldn't be mad at him for all these things. So I'm like, God isn't keeping me from all these trials, and God isn't keeping me from all the pains that could possibly enter my life, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't love me. So I think there's a misunderstanding, and there's a missing part of love that we don't really grasp, that we need to. And on that subject, as Christians, we can't choose who we're going to love. Like Jesus loved everybody. And I think a lot of people agree with that. And we say it all over social media, like, I love everybody. But we don't truly understand what that means. And we don't allow ourselves to get in rich young ruler situations, because we're afraid if we tell someone you can't live like that, then they're going to run away. And that's going to happen sometimes. But on that subject of loving everybody, that means that we need to love the immigrant. That means we need to love the homosexual. That means we need to love people who are just straight up mean to us. And we can't just pick and choose. But it also means that we need to love the MAGA supporter. It means we need to love Donald Trump. It means we need to love all those crazy white people who are sometimes racist. We need to love those people too, and that is not popular to say. And how do I know it's not popular to say? Because I've heard sermons, and I've heard angry Christians talking about how important race is on the side of minority. And I've heard pastors getting up just straight up angry at the pulpit and saying that we need to treat our immigrant neighbors and our minority neighbors and homosexual neighbors right. But I don't hear the same thing when it comes to Donald Trump or even white supremacists. Guess what? We gotta love them too, and I know it's hard, but we can't, if we're not truly not picking and choosing, we have to love people even when it's unpopular to love them. And it's not popular to love Donald Trump. He's saying some dumb things, but we have to love him too. I'm saying this because I'm hoping that people realize that being a Christian all the time means that we're going to say some things that are unpopular. And people are going to look at you like, what are you doing? That doesn't mean that you're okay with what that person is doing. It just means that you are choosing to love them. I'm going to tell the truth, and I'm going to be honest about what sin is and what's wrong. But that doesn't mean that I don't love that person. So, that is my rant for this week. Hope y'all like it. Go ahead and drop a comment. I'm no preacher, but